What's up, everybody? Jensen Cummings here. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. This is Best Served Podcast 173, Restaurant Leadership with Carrie Luxem of Restaurant HR Group. Thank you so much, Carrie, for being on.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, this channel, Best Served Fresh, where we really focus on fresh ideas, new approaches, best practices, reimagination of the restaurant industry model, and leaders therein. Carrie is you got a lot to your title. I love it. Founder, CEO, Restaurant HR Group, Carrie Luxem, LLC.
Wow, I kind of look important, Jensen, but I'm really not that important, right? I'm not very
I like it. And
I like what you did there.
Where I get to consume most of your content, LinkedIn. You're very active on LinkedIn. We're going to talk a lot about content output, about storytelling, about just being real and connecting with your audience. You've done a great job of that and connecting your story, your client's story, the tenor and tone of what's happening in the industry. Connecting those dots is something that I'm a believer in, and you seem to do a great job of that. And anybody who knows you, this is your studio right here. I recognize it from the subscribe YouTube pillow.
Right. I used to be in my kitchen and now I'm in my office.
I like it. My sons call this the podcast room here.
I love it.
Basically what happens in our little office upstairs. So let's tell everybody, Restaurant HR Group, what specifically could people expect from your company?
Well, with Restaurant HR Group, you noticed it said Restaurant HR Group and Carrie Luxem LLC. With Restaurant HR Group, we're very simply an HR payroll and benefits outsourcing service. So we handle the administration and compliance of HR for restaurants only throughout the US. So we have clients that range from smaller in size to larger in size that are fast casual or quick service to full service. And we basically take over their payroll, benefits, and HR, or we work with their HR team if they're large enough. And we basically handle we do the heavy lifting, if you will, for the HR payroll and benefits. And then with Carrie Luxem LLC, that's sort of my personal brand. And that's where I'm really doing training and keynotes. And I wrote a book, I'm writing a second book. And it's really just I've created a membership platform. So I really just have different layers. Not everybody can afford to have Restaurant HR Group ongoing services. So I like to give out free content. That's what I do on LinkedIn and all that. So you don't have to pay a thing. Or we have a membership platform that's got it organized very well. We're there to answer questions for our operators. That's like you for like $299 a year. We have people that join that. I have a book that is for sale on Amazon. That's another resource, but it's really just like I try to help as many restaurateurs as I possibly can in many different ways, from not having any support to having the maximum support. And it's really, I'm really passionate about helping create restaurant success stories, because I know this industry can create so many opportunities for people from all walks of life. And my story is, I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for this industry and this incredible industry that we're in. So
I absolutely love it. The free content side, we're going to touch on that later. People need to pay attention to that. It's so important. I want to go back a little bit though. You mentioned, how passionate you are about this industry. I want to get to the why we do what we do, who it is we serve, like who's gotten us to this point is what really matters. We get so chummed up in the minutia of what we do and how we do. And that's really what we want to focus on. So take us back.
Yeah. Well, my story is really why I'm so grateful for all that I have. So I'll try not to take up the whole time that we're supposed to spend telling this, but I go back to when I was 15 years old. My path wasn't going great. My parents had gotten a divorce and there was a lot of troubles going on. My brothers were getting in trouble. There were just some things going on and school wasn't really a priority. And I get this one job at Dairy Queen. I started at this little Dairy Queen in Rockford, Illinois, and the leaders, the owners, the franchisees in this little restaurant, they really understood. They had simple systems and they were great human beings, great leaders that cared about me outside of making an ice cream cone for them, And so this is where I really started to identify the power a company that has it together, that has great people operating it, can have in a person's life like they did mine. So I started to take this turn and realize I could follow my dreams. And it was the restaurant industry. I went on to work in a ton of different restaurants, some really horrible leaders, and I learned a ton from that, and a lot of bad systems. And so I did all these different jobs throughout my teens, and I started little businesses. I've always been very entrepreneurial, but I moved to Chicago. I am like kind of a lost soul. I have no real confidence, but I'm trying to fake it a little bit. I'm just out there trying to figure out, what am I going to do, because I want to impact the world. I love the restaurant industry, but I didn't really have the experience. I didn't really have the education that I needed to get the kind of job that I thought I could get. But I then crossed paths with the visionary behind a small restaurant concept called Potbelly Sandwich Works. And at the time, this small company had 3 restaurants and some huge, growth plans. And Brian Kyle, I mean, this guy, I meet him at one of the stores and we talk, and then he tells me he's looking for a head of HR. Okay. I worked at Dairy Queen, and I worked for my father's company, which I did a little bit of payroll and things like that. So anyway, I looked up this ad that he placed for this position, and I wanted this job, and he wanted a master's degree in HR and all this experience. And I'm like, it's a long shot, but I sent him a message, and long story short, the man gave a chance to me. He said, I'm going to let you start and head up my HR department. So that was a very big moment for me. I'm 27 years old. This was in 1999. I am I'm the head of HR for this little company with these enormous growth plans. So then I am.
And we know, honestly, no, sorry to cut you off. We know where they ended up, because Potbelly, massive, huge exit for Bryant and their founding team.
Yeah, it was great. And it was just such an incredible 10 and a half years for me in terms of learning how to support operators and what being HR really meant. It's not really about policies, it's about people. We're in the people business, and I became very, very skilled at how to help make operators' lives easier, not harder, not more complicated, but how do I help restaurateurs with what they need help with, and how do I convince them that they need certain things that they need or whatever. So I got good at that.
Yes, let's stick with that. Let's stick with that right there. One, I'm interested if you had to look up what HR actually meant, because
I didn't quite that bad. I don't think it was that bad. Maybe, I don't know.
One of those acronyms. Right now we're in the I don't know what, the golden era, even though it's on the negative side of acronyms. We're supposed to know what EIDL means, SBA, PPP, PPE, all these different things. And HR is one of those understood yet completely misunderstood. I want to talk about HR, human resources. There's a huge struggle, and this is why you've been so successful, is that you're humanizing it, because there's a very strange thing that happened where human resources almost became an oxymoron. It became a caricature of itself, where there was no humanity in human resources. It was the cold memo and trying to legalese the language to make sure that you were always protecting and deflecting. And so I want to touch on that at a high level. When you think of HR, where do you go? Clearly people. Expound.
It's all about people. It's all about people. But I will tell you, it is. I hear people all the time talk about their dislike for HR. And I will tell you, I witness very regularly people that the buck stops here. I'm HR, and it's just not a great strategy. It's really about simplifying everything. Making, when I talk to operators, why would I want to talk in a way that is confusing and complicated and be really impressed with my strategies and words? Yeah. I need to add value to them. So I need to be able to get them to understand what it is we're doing. So that's where we've really had a lot of success, is we simplify everything. We connect everything to the business. We really care about people over policies. We don't just make up policies to have. A lot of times HR just what's the purpose in that policy? And there isn't one. And then operators are like, why are you wasting my time? I've got meals to serve. And so I think it's about being real. It's about challenging and having hard conversations and all those things, but it's just about being a good person. It's about supporting people. The best HR leaders I know truly have a very servant mentality. They want to help people. They want to help the world. And that's really why I've had a lot of success.
So yes, I think so important. Now it's also easy to say, it's so hard to execute on that. And I'm very interested. You mentioned connecting with the business and the operators, and you're really focused on restaurant leadership. How do you downstream the mentality and the approach to the line level? Because that's where sometimes it gets lost, right? It's the game of telephone. What happens on paper from the corporate perspective or individual
right.
operation down to the operator, owner, their buy-in to management to line level. It's a game of telephone and it's completely convoluted and there's no continuity, no consistency.
Honestly, Jensen, that is why you're a chef. Hey, chef, if I'm going to convince you that something needs to happen, you've got to really believe it. And you almost have to believe that it's sort of your idea. And you sort of have to do it that way. It's a persuasion thing. Right. And so it's really about, and I connect the whys with operators, it's not just here's a program, let's roll it out. It's like, all right, listen, here's what it's going to do for you in 2 months or what's going to happen with your team. And when they believe it, then it's a belief. It's not a communication that gets lost. You know what I'm saying? So if you can, and if I'm working with a chef and they don't buy into a program that I think is great, they don't find it valuable, it's never going to be a value to their restaurant. So why would I try to keep pushing it? So I have over the years figured out how to skillfully convince or get the operators that I work with on board with stuff because they truly become a believer that that initiative is worthwhile for whatever reason. They may kick and fight and scream that they don't want to, but they connect with why it's important for them for their liability reasons or because of a culture thing or whatever it may be. Is it easy? Of course not. Is it a constant day-to-day battle? It definitely is. But to me, that's part of the fun. It's like challenges and opportunities to change things. That's the business I'm in. I always tell restaurant operators, it's really funny. You hire a GM or a chef and they're like, if I could just get these people in order and not have these people problems, I could do my job. That is your job.
That is your
Dealing
job.
with people is your job. And so when people are like, oh, you have all these challenges and you're trying to convince operators, that's what I do. It's not an annoying part of what I do so I can do my HR policies. It's part of what we do. I care about my clients' business. I care about what happens in the entire business, not just in my world of HR and payroll and benefits, and then trying to teach. And with my own team, we're constantly meeting and trying to simplify and connect. And really, I focus heavily on being human. People will work with you if they like you and if they feel that you're human. And we do a really nice job of that. Again, it's a day-to-day challenge, but that's what we do. So
humans and human resources.
It's kind of weird.
Obvious. Yeah, I think it needs to be stated. I'm a big believer of anything that goes without saying does not. You say it most often and you say it loudest.
Right.
And I think that's a very important point. You're absolutely in the people persuasion business. And the policy side is the easy side. Somebody's potentially written a great policy already and you would just apply them. It's people persuasion. I think that's huge. Humans and communication is the whole game. It's literally, I think every single episode I say that because it's the business we're in. We just happen to use food and beverage and hospitality as our communication medium, but we're absolutely in communication. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Communication, let's stay with that. Let's stay with leaders. The leaders that are the best leaders within hospitality, within an industry are the best communicators. That is full stop, right? We know that. The ability to communicate downline is a challenge. I mentioned the game of telephone. Talk to a leader very specifically. Here's what you need to be thinking about when you are thinking about your people and the way that you can empower them versus stifle them. That comes up a lot when we're trying to control people through policy versus empower people through policy. So talk about that a little bit from the perspective of you're talking to a leader of the way that they could potentially be communicating and talking to their teams.
Well, one is I think people think they're better communicators than they are very often. They definitely do. They think they're communicating better than they are, because they put out a memo or they got on a Zoom call. But really giving, for me, I think it's really connecting with an operator that they need to be super honest. The good stuff, the bad stuff, the hard stuff. It's the nice thing to do to say, hey, chef, you're not really great at that, but let's work on it. But most people, a lot of people don't do that. Even some of the most savvy and aggressive restaurateurs that I know, they just don't hit those things head on like, you could. And when I think the key to the success that I have seen in the players that I have been involved with is it really comes down to true authenticity. And people can see through a facade when somebody is not authentic and they're leading in a way because they're afraid, or there's someone's telling them what to do, or HR is trying to dictate how they should talk in a meeting or whatever it is. Yep. The leaders, the Bryant Kyles, the Tom Jeds that we'll probably talk about, the John Luxems, who's my husband. They're all very serious operators. They're all very different people. They all get to success in a very different way, but they're very genuine people that are authentic and going to lead in a way that makes sense for them, and they care about people. And that's why they have the success that they do.
Yeah, I'm a big buyer in that. No matter what it is, just be yourself and be consistent in that. It goes a long way. And for me, I've recognized in my own career that this is why we started this show. It's why we are acknowledging unsung hospitality heroes all the time. Introducing people is so important, because it's linear, it's binary for me. When I look back, all the times that I've succeeded in my career, it's because as a leader, I recognize that I work for my team.
Yeah, exactly. And so going back to your question, when you ask a team, hey, listen, I don't know the answers. I'm the leader, I'm the CEO, I'm the chef, I'm the founder. Help me come up with the answer. That's empowerment, right? When you're asking questions, when you're over communicating, when you're saying, I care enough about you to tell you you're not good at that. So it's about compassion and care, but being honest, being authentic, including them in the mix, that sort of thing. Somebody just reached out to me a couple of weeks ago asking me to talk about how to keep young people motivated. I just did a video today. I'm going to post it today about how to do that. And I talk about these very things. So, so I think it just comes down to leadership, and really being a great communicator, caring about what your people think, understanding that not only is everybody different, but everybody has lives outside of work, and things happen. People get married, people lose their parents, people get pregnant, people are sick, and being okay with that, not being just as good as your last shift. It's like, who is the person? What are they bringing to the table? And I'm going to care about them as a human being, because people go through things. That's how you build loyalty, and that's how you build a great company, in my opinion.
100%. Culture. I want to talk about culture. This is a word we throw around here, and we throw it around, and nobody knows what it means. Nobody knows what it means. Nobody is mapping to that authentically, consistently, all of those things. We pay lip service to a lot. If you do, you see some of the brands that emerge, because that is literally their whole job, is they're focused on that. Culture, define that for us, and then we'll get a little granular.
I think that people, when you say culture, people automatically think, oh, it's got to feel like a family, or like other people are defining it. Culture is what it is. It's the byproduct of consistent behavior. So however you behave every day as the leaders, how your people behave, what your customers feel, what the community feels, what your employees are experiencing, that is your culture. It's not what you say it is. It's not what's in the frame in the back of the house. It's not what's in the handbook. It's not your values that you make everybody memorize. It's what you are every day. And you get that by the behaviors, and it's not what you say, it's what you do and how people feel. And, I work with brands that have, they're a big company. They have multiple restaurants. There's an individual culture in all the restaurants. There's different cultures in each of the restaurants, depending on who's there and who's running it and where they're located. And it doesn't mean good and bad or whatever. It's just different. Culture is what people, in my opinion, are feeling and believing. And it's not a definition in the handbook. You can certainly, and you probably should, define what you want it to be. What's your desired, what do you want people to feel when they work for you? What do you want them to believe, and what values matter to you? And you try to do things and activities and take action that are going to make it feel that way. But it's really, you're right. I think people do throw that around, and building a great culture. I talk about this, you talk about this a lot. I struggle with how to keep my culture as positive as I want and forward, moving forward. And it's just, it's a lot of work. The companies in the world, the companies or the restaurant groups that do this really, really well, they work at it every single day. It's like a relationship. It's like a marriage. It's compromising. It's talking to each other. It's trying things. You're going to have disagreements, and that is, to me, culture. It's like all of those things.
You said something important when you talked about multiple restaurants are going to have like their own microclimate, their own microculture. Yeah. Ooh, I like that. Sophie, write that down.
Put that up on the screen.
That's a good one. So it's interesting because you are creating a framework, yet the framework needs to be flexible. It needs to be fluid so that it is adaptive for the people that work within that. That is a very microculture. Perfect. That is a very important
It should have stars around it or something.
I know, we need some emojis. Let's come up with a microculture emoji. So it's a very important dynamic, and it's super hard. One, either you let it be what it is, and then it can become Lord of the Flies very quickly, and it's chaos. Or you're so rigid and you have the perfect mission statement and the perfect policies and the perfect this, and it doesn't work in 9 out of 10 of your locations, right? And so let's get very practical. How do you, Sophie, you're the best. How do you create a framework of policy geared towards empowering people that does have consistency, yet still has that fluidity? It's
tough. It is tough. I mean, I think that, to like back it up to the beginning, I think you've got to really understand what your mission is. What's your vision for your company? What is your real purpose? And then sort of build it around that, and then try to execute it with the things that you say and the things that you do. And know it's never perfect, and listen to your people. And I don't know. I wish that I had like a magic sentence or, something that would make this make sense. It's just so different for everybody. Yeah. We have some cultures of the clients that we work with. The cultures are not cultures and I would necessarily be happy in, but it is their culture and they don't mind it. That's the way they like it. So it's hard to say, this is what you got to do to have the right culture. A strong culture or a great culture, I think, is defined differently by whomever you're talking to. I think it comes down to when people say, having a great culture, I think they want people to come to work and be happy and to love what they're doing or like what they're doing enough to be there and put a smile on their face and that sort of thing. But I think you have to constantly do things and talk about it and care about it, because what do people care about? The things that you focus on. Yeah. But there are companies that all they do is talk about their marketing company made their mission and vision and purpose, and they have it so organized, so pretty, and it's in the books and everything, but they don't live it. They talk it, And so I don't know exactly what the answer is to that, but I think that
was the answer. First, ask the question. Second, just be consistent and constantly. The word constantly, when we said, I was like, yes, you have to constantly be working on it every day. Yeah. Because you wrote it on a piece of paper does not mean that that's what's actually happening in practice, in action. Yeah. And so I think that's an important distinction, is you have to recognize that. And then you have to empower leaders to create a little bit of that fluidity and flexibility. And then they have to own it. Right.
And it's not just about, wine dinners and balloons on your birthday. That's not a culture. It's really about being real. What do people want? You got to learn all those things, and then diving into who you want to be as a company. Are you bringing on the right people? I mean, we could talk about this forever and kind of go in circles, but
one last thing I do want to talk about.
Yeah.
You mentioned putting out free content. I want you to put on the hat of a personal brand or just a brand, because the HR, honestly, the HR, you're strong. The brand side, I think, is where you really excel from my perspective.
Yeah.
And restaurants are brands that need to be storytelling. They need to be communicators. They need to communicate. And we struggle with communicating outside of our four walls because we've been so focused on putting butts in seats. That's what we're built to do. Hospitality, we are able to control your experience when you're in our four walls. And we struggle sometimes with storytelling outside of those four walls and connecting. And so I've been talking about table touches. I think that the way that you approach table touches and interacting with every guest is what you need to do, except now you have 2,784,000 potential tables. They just happen to be on a social media platform. So thinking about that, you've done an amazing job of putting out free content. Yet it's your business. Like if somebody doesn't pay you for that, your business goes away, yet you're still putting out the free content. I think restaurants need to think the same way. You need to put value out there, not be transactional and always trying to be selling. You need to ask the thoughtful questions to get to the sell, because people are bought into you, your brand, your story, your mission, all that. Let's take the last couple minutes and talk to operators, talk to people in restaurants, just even a bartender, their personal brand. Talk to us about why it's important to put out brand and message.
Yeah, for me, okay, let me disclaimer here. I am not a personal branding expert. I have definitely had a lot of success in my own journey here, but so I can only tell you what has worked for me personally.
None of us are experts.
Yeah.
We're just good at it. So I want to suck
Okay, good.
some
So
superpower.
I will, yeah. So I will tell you, I remember one of my early clients was a guy named Matt, and he was the founder of this company called Protein Bar Chicago, Protein Bar Kitchen. And I was like, you're always all over everything. He was a restaurateur. He ended up growing his business and selling it or whatever. But he just sat with me and just said, Carrie, you've got so much energy and knowledge and passion. Just, and I wanted to grow my business. Just talk about the things you know, help the world understand what your clients' needs are. Just start doing that. Write articles. This is before the video time, So I started to do that. And I like to help one person at a time, sort of a mentality. I don't get hung up on the likes, the vanity metrics. I don't know when is the best time to post. I don't focus on any of that stuff. I just never have cared about it. And so then I was like, all right, I've been doing these articles. I need to shake it up a little bit. Let's start doing videos. I was not comfortable at videoing when I first started, but I'm like, I'll just try it. And so then that was just another level. And I know my audience. I'm talking to restaurant operators. They don't have 6 hours to listen to me. So I gave them 40 seconds of my advice. And so I've been doing that. And I know what my followers or my clients or whatever need to hear about or talk about. I get messages. I have real clients and they're asking those questions, or as we have gone through COVID or whatever it is, we're helping with the things that really matter in the moment. And we're trying to help them set up simple systems and how to be better leaders. And so I just constantly pump out new content, whether it's, a little video that seems overwhelming. I grab my phone, I have a message, I look at my phone and I say the message and I take it, and I'm fancy. I can caption it all by myself. Okay. I can caption it. I put it on LinkedIn and I put it on Instagram. I'll put it on Facebook. I started to focus on YouTube in the last 6 months or so, and we're getting some traction on YouTube. Again, goes back to consistency, but people know if they need advice on something, they can get it from me. And that's how I think that I've slowly gone from, just a few followers to just continuing to grow. And LinkedIn is my most, successful, if you want to call it that, platform in terms of where I have the most action that happens. But for me, it's
Carrie, this is not a plug show. It's all about people. Yet I'll tell the people, they need to be paying attention to you on LinkedIn. If you are connected to the hospitality industry at all, you need to pay attention to Carrie and the 67,000 followers on there that are paying attention. If you're not paying attention, you're missing the boat 100%.
Thanks. So I really go into my LinkedIn messaging and other platforms with truly adding value. I'm not even comfortable very often with call to actions. My team makes fun of me because they're like, it's a promotional video. You have to say, come and find me on this. I'm like, I don't want to say that. I just want to give them valuable information. Now, obviously I've evolved a little bit from that, but it's really for me about helping people. Again, I have this passion for the industry. You want to get some information from me, I'm going to give it to you on the platform for free. And then, of course, they can become one of my clients one day, which is oftentimes what happens. And a lot of my clients that I onboard, they say, oh, I originally saw you on LinkedIn. They never engaged in my stuff. So to me, that's not how I equate my branding to success. So I try to be inspirational. I try to give them information on how to run restaurants. And I just talk in my own language. I'm not super polished. And it's been very great for me. People want to work with or dine in places where they feel, obviously you have to have great food if you're in the restaurant, but that they can connect with you in some way. And they feel like you understand them and you can help them in some way, So I don't know exactly how a restaurateur would use the platform similarly, but I am a believer in this whole branding thing and
it's bring value, exactly. Communicate, tell your story. Don't just sell.
Exactly.
The biggest thing. The sales will come because you're building credibility. You're building that value becomes the transaction that fuels you, not the transactional sale. The sale comes because you're putting the value into the ecosystem. And for anybody, myself included, somebody whose business is strategy, consulting, brand, marketing, storytelling, concepting, all those things. Like this is why this is episode 167 since March 18th, is because I just want to hustle and communicate, because that's what everyone else in the industry is doing. They deserve it. And I'm, proud, honored. So thank you for that. Any last thoughts before we get out?
I would say last thought on that whole thing, and this is kind of with anything, culture, branding, whatever, it comes down for me. Some people say, how have you done it? How have you had the success? How have you been able to grow your business? I am so consistent, as you are, super consistent in everything I do. And I'm really, really, really patient. I know that it's going to take me a long time to grow my YouTube channel. Some people started out, they put some videos on there. They're like, I don't have 500 new subscribers. I'm going to quit. I do these things for years and then see what happens. And I think that's in anything that somebody is doing to try to build a network, build a business, grow a restaurant. It's really about what you do day in and day out, the patience that you have, and how you lead. So
patience, restaurant people, listen to that. We are the worst at it. We're such instant gratification, because we make a dish, we make a drink, we put it out, we get the instant feedback loop. Happens very quickly. So patience, huge, important word. Carrie Luxem, amazing. Love the work that you're doing. You and I have
so much.
a lot more to talk about, because there's so many intersections between our ethos and our efforts. And so I'm excited. Everybody make sure and check out. You're not good at the call to action. We usually are either. I'm going to give you the absolute daps, like go and follow what Carrie is doing. HR specifically, but moreover, just the way that you're interacting with the humans in hospitality. You can glean a lot from that, even if you're not HR focused, even if that's not under your purview within your company, even if you're the chief technology officer of a multi-unit chain, you should still be paying attention. So Carrie, I really appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you so much.
All right, we're going to let you go, and I'm going to wrap with the audience for a second. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Awesome.
All right, Carrie Luxem, again, a restaurant HR group. Humans and human resources. What an important distinction that is. I think it's there's a lot of opportunity for us to reimagine what's happening with human resources, the way that we are positioning people to empower them versus creating policies to control them, I think is something important. You can build culture and not just play lip service to a word that's super buzzy right now. I think is very important. So, all right, appreciate that, Carrie Luxem. 173 restaurant leadership with Carrie Luxem of the Restaurant HR Group. Wow, unbelievable. We've been able to create this many episodes. Best Served Fresh. You're gonna be seeing a lot from this show. This is one of the channels I'm most excited about. Fresh ideas, new approaches, best practices, really focusing on innovation with the way that we are positioning our people, positioning our businesses. There is a need and a huge opportunity in this time, especially. It's been a long time coming. That's it for today, for this episode. Thank you as always. I appreciate you. Cheers.